Okay, so where are we as far as questions go? Okay, Brian, I had a question for you specifically. How did you come up with your tagline, funny name, serious art?
I think it's just because, so first of all, like Octopolis came out of nowhere just because I'm always trying to do 8 things at one time. And my wife likes octopus. And so I was like, octopus, metropolis, octopolis. And I never, like, I was doing comics and like the illustration was like a once in a blue moon thing. And then like it exploded. And so then octopolis was everything everywhere. And so I had to like explain the crazy name to people over and over and over. And especially when I launched my website, people would just be like, what is this? Is this real? Is this, is this art, a fishing site? What is this? So it really just came down to it was a good way to let people know that, yes, I'm a real artist. It's a crazy name. But for everyone who was a fan or who was discovering it the first time, that kind of would put them at ease. And, with a name like Brian Miller, it's so generic that I can't really go by my name because there's hundreds of thousands of Brian Millers out there. I mean, even in middle school, I remember getting called to the principal's office. And they, it's the thing where you're in class, they do the announcement like, Brian Miller, please come to the principal's office. Brian Miller to the principal's office. And I walk in and I'm scared and I'm like, hi, Brian Miller. And they're like 2 cops standing there and a sheriff. And they're like, we found weed in your locker. You're going to jail. And then like this like tough looking blonde kid with like a ripped up jean vest and like tat on his arm walked in. And he's like, what's up? And like, who are you? He's like, I'm Brian Miller. And they looked at me and like, you can go. So wow. I learned early on that the name Brian Miller was just too generic. And so when I got into art and comics and stuff, I just said, I've got to go by something else so people can actually find me.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah, I'm lucky there's not too many Joe Corronis out there. So I'm on the opposite end of that issue. So well,
and I think there's 2 other Brian Millers involved with Lucasfilm, right?
Yeah, there's one for sure. There's another Brian Miller who actually works at Lucasfilm.
Like a producer, right?
Yeah, he's a producer or something. Because I know sometimes, haven't you gotten emails crossed with him or something?
Well, I was at a convention where I was on a panel and they introduced me as like, you know him as the producer behind legendary episodes of the Clone Wars and this Star Wars video game. And he's been
wow, you've done more than you thought.
25. And they go through this whole beautiful introduction, like Brian Miller, and everyone's going crazy. And I think I was on stage with like Sam Witwer and a couple of other people and like Delilah Dawson. And I was like, so I am Brian Miller and I do work for Star Wars, but that is not me. And the guy was embarrassed, but I was like, and I hate to let everybody down, but I didn't produce anything. I make artwork, and so it ended up being a great time, but it was just another one of those Brian Miller times. It was like, oh, why do I have this stupid name?
Curse you, Dave.
All because my mother wouldn't name me Andrew because she was afraid people would call me Drew.
I know an Andrew Miller, by the way. You would be the second Andrew Miller I know.
It's like, we can't do that. People would call him Drew. I'm like, so Drew's cool. I'd probably be like an investment banker or something if I was Drew Miller.
Hey, was the audio fine for you, or was it still recording okay?
Yeah, I think so. As far as I can tell.
Okay. So I have my phone connected to my wife's car, and just for a second or so, she was coming back from dropping off our stepson at work, and the audio switched over to her car for a second. So I just wanted to make sure everything was good.
Yeah, I think that happened earlier towards the end when we heard her voice coming through before in the end of the other meeting.
I thought we were picking up like CB truckers or alien transmissions or something.
Yep.
Nope.
Yeah, it sounded fine on our end. There was no interruptions on the audio for all of that.
Okay, good. Okie dokie. So, next question. For Brian, will you talk a little more about what you do in terms of educating future artists and your interest in NASA?
Sure. So my wife is an educator, And early on, I had developed this process for coloring comics in Photoshop. And as I needed to hire more and more colorists to work with me because of demand, I'm training them one at a time, how to do what I do. And so eventually that turned into a lot like a little guide. And my wife was at a comic book convention, and she was talking to a book publisher. And she was like, "You got a book on lettering, you got a book on penciling, you got a book on inking. Where's the book on coloring?" And they're like, "We don't have one." So she made sure that they did after that. We wrote a book, and that turned into 3 books and some DVDs. And that turned into us visiting high schools and colleges and taking trips across the country to, go to schools and educate kids, and panels at San Diego Comic-Con and other conventions about art and art education and how art can be a career in a lot of schools or a lot of our culture in general. We don't necessarily talk about art as a career. And so letting people know that you can be an artist and be successful, and you can work for really cool things. And I think, the world of pop culture and comics has been very good to me. And the least I can do as a way to give back is to try to help bring up other artists and aspiring artists, and maybe give them some tools or give them a little bit of stories of what not to do from my experiences, or whatever, we can do to help them. And that's led me to also collaborate with schools like ASU and some other colleges. Been doing a lot of stuff with the Kubert School. And both of those also got me involved with ASU specifically, astronauts and Smithsonian and some NASA connections and asteroid mining and all this. And I'm a huge, obviously as a sci-fi fan, I love everything to do with space travel. And so it's been a dream come true to collaborate with, astronauts and rocket scientists and engineers on some illustrations and some short story projects. So, I think as Joe was saying earlier, sometimes people see what you do and then invite you along to do other things. And I think one of the side benefits of Joe and I both being involved in Star Wars is that what we don't realize sometimes is that there are people at NASA and there are people at space agencies and at other scientific places who are also fans of Star Wars, and they might see what we do and then go, "Oh man, Joe, Brian, you would be perfect to work on this other thing with us." And so being an ambassador for the Star Wars brand opens up a lot of other doors to other opportunities.
Interesting. Do you both have a favorite convention that you enjoy attending every year?
I mean, I might be speaking for both of us on this, but definitely Star Wars Celebration is our. It's the one that it's the most fun for us, but not just because it's Star Wars necessarily. That's a huge part of it, but a lot of our friends and extended family that we've made over the years through this fandom for this passion of Star Wars that we've had our entire lives, and we've made lifelong friendships with some of these people, even people at Lucasfilm that we work with on these projects. We get to meet up with them again after so many years. They have celebration every few years, and getting to meet back up with our friends and extended family and catch up with each other and celebrate this mutual our passion for this thing that we all love and that drives us and inspires us to create. I mean, Star Wars Celebration, it's so special for those reasons that it's unlike any other event or Comic-Con. I mean, and we go to a lot of really fun Comic-Cons, and they're all fun in their own way, but Star Wars Celebration is always a bit more special for us in that regard. So it's more than just about selling artwork or networking or
the parties
panels. Oh, what's that?
Or the parties.
Star Wars Celebration has some great parties for sure. But even those are about, hey, hanging out with all of our friends in the 501st Legion that we don't get to see, because we live on one coast and they might live on the other, and Celebration brings us all together. So Star Wars Celebration, I think for sure is our probably our favorite event that we can't wait to do. So we're really excited for the one coming up in Anaheim this May. So because it's been a few years since we had a celebration in person, an in-person event. So we're overdue, and I think fans are excited and ready to reconvene in California and have the biggest and best Star Wars party in the world.
I do think there's pent up demand. And like you said, it's been a couple of years since we've had an in-person celebration. And now fans have this chance to come back and meet their favorite Star Wars creators and interact with their friends in the 501st and, get those special collectibles. And you think about one of the differences between a Star Wars celebration and a sort of just regular Comic-Con is, at a regular Comic-Con, you don't know really what you're going to bump into. Yeah, there's some things announced, right? But it's a little bit more random. It's just all of pop culture. Whereas with Star Wars, that it's going to be focused on all the things that you love about Star Wars. And so, the fans get to stay in that Star Wars mindset the whole time they're at the show, because not just the convention floor, but then when you spill out into the hotels and the restaurants afterwards, or this one's in Anaheim, I can tell you a bunch of those people are going to be going to this, Disneyland too, and downtown Disney. And it's just going to be living and breathing Star Wars for the entire time that show's going on. And it lets you have an escapism that you don't get anywhere else, and have this like feeling of community that just goes on. And when it's done, you just are ready to do it all over again.
How many conventions do you guys go to usually every year, COVID notwithstanding?
Oh gosh, I go to a lot. I mean, yeah, when COVID happened, it definitely pumped the brakes for a little over a year, and there weren't any in-person events. And late last summer, they slowly started to pick back up again. On average, when there's not a life-endangering pandemic, I do a lot. I'm in the Midwest, so I'm kind of in a good spot to travel to the East Coast and the South and the North. I probably do on average maybe 15, 17, 18 conventions a year. And it's also because these events are accessible for me. So I can hit them a little easier from the Midwest. But Comic-Cons in general over the last, almost even 10 years, maybe, have been they've been so big, and they've really kind of taken on a life of their own, and they just keep growing, and more of these keep popping up. So it's been a great way for me to get out and share my artwork with a lot of different fans and fan bases.
Well, if you look at the music industry over, say, the last 20 years, we've seen this real shift from bands that would release an album and go multiple platinum, and they might do like a short summer tour, to where there's some bands that are touring like almost all year, right? And that's how they're meeting their fans and interacting with people and having the majority of their success, because there's so much like noise out, in just the regular like music world. And I think comics is very similar in pop culture in general, in that, it used to be, you did your San Diego Comic-Con, you did your Chicago Con, maybe New York or maybe Seattle or something. And that was kind of the main cons that you hit. And the comic books and the projects came out and to big fanfare and acclaim. But now, like that music industry, there's a lot of noise out there. There's product coming out all the time, and it's hard to get attention. And so as creators, we do have to hit the road. And there'll be times where, if it's the middle of the summer, I might be gone every weekend for 3 months in a row or something like that, out of necessity to get out there and be in front of people. So when the pandemic came along, it really like put a damper on things. So I'm excited that this upcoming Star Wars celebration will be my first event back since the pandemic started, my first live event. It might be the only one I do in all of 2022. So I'm really excited about it. And I would say anybody who's going to attend Star Wars Celebration, I think there's so much pent up demand. I hope they come by and say hi to Joe and I and pick up our latest artwork. And if you're going for sure, go on to Acme Archives and go on to Dark Ink Art and pre-order our exclusive artwork that's going to be at the show. Make sure you can get it. And that way, when you come, bring it over to us, get an autograph, chat with us. Let's get some pictures together because we miss our Star Wars family. And I think it's going to be just wild, crazy here in a couple of weeks in May. So just look forward to seeing everybody. And it'll be nice to be back in a real live event again. So yeah, Star Wars Celebration all the way. I cannot wait to see everybody.
What would you say that your guys are looking forward to the most at Star Wars Celebration this year?
There's, like we touched on earlier, there's so many of our friends we don't really get to see that often. And with Brian and I, because we're kind of in opposite, he's in the Southwest and I'm in the Midwest over in Ohio. So when we do get to meet in person, it's, maybe once or twice a year if we're lucky. So for that reason, Celebration's kind of special for us to reconnect and get to hang out and catch up in person. And with all of our other friends too, and all the fans that have supported us all over the years, who bought, all of our prints, and they've shared our artwork online, or they've come to us at other events and conventions. Those are the people that, I'm excited to see again, and friends we've made over the years since working in this industry for 20 some years now. So, and that's totally honest, without any kind of cheesiness or anything. So, it's great to see the reveals. Like I'm excited. I hope they do a big event for Kenobi, like a preview, because it launches. The Obi-Wan Kenobi will actually launch, I think, the first day of Celebration or the night before. So, hopefully we'll get to see, maybe the Celebration will do, they'll do a preview of the first few episodes. Not that we'll necessarily get to see it because we'll be busy at our booths, but at least we can partake in the excitement for that. There's, and all the panels and all the actors, they're always fun to meet and catch up with, since we've gotten to know a few of them over the years, and that's always exciting to rub elbows with some of the celebrities in the Star Wars world. But honestly, it's just meeting our fans and our friends that we've known, and making new friends and fans, is every celebration that always happens. So that's the highlight for us, I think.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Like Joe said, I'm super excited to see what's going on with Kenobi. Obviously, everybody is. But along the lines of our fans and our friends, we're creators. And so I think we're also excited by what other people create. So I am excited to see the other Star Wars Celebration Art Show artists and what they created. I'm excited to see the fans that we know they're in the 501st, and maybe they built their new armor and just got in, or maybe it's their second piece of armor, or maybe it's a cosplayer with a new costume, or some of our friends are tattoo artists and they're there live tattooing. We get to see their works. There's this human element of Star Wars that it's hard to express, but as a creator, I get excited seeing what other people are creating. And it doesn't have to be the same thing I'm doing, right? Just because it's Star Wars and they have some crazy idea and you get to see it brought to fruition, that's exciting. And that's a memory that you could take home, and no one else was there to experience it except for you and the other people there. So, when they talk about Star Wars Celebration exclusives, it's not just the stuff, it's the experience. The experience is an exclusive because you can't buy it, you can't bottle it, you can't sell it. You have to be there to have that experience. And that is what I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Well said.
Do you guys have any favorite memories from any convention you've ever attended?
There's been a few where I've gotten to meet some of the actors from the Star Wars films. And if you had told me when I was a little kid, that someday as an adult, I'd be working as a professional on Star Wars, illustrating for this property, and that I'd be going to a convention in New York and hanging out with David Prowse, the actor who played Darth Vader, my favorite Star Wars character as a kid. right next to Boba Fett, or even Jeremy Bulloch, getting to meet and hang out with Jeremy Bulloch at multiple conventions over the years, just to the point where Jeremy sees me walking down a hotel hallway and he's already cracking jokes at my expense. We had that kind of relationship. And because we had done so many conventions together over the years, and we've been in those trenches of those really small sci-fi conventions where not maybe a lot of people didn't come, but we still had a great time hanging out together and going to dinner and stuff. So, I mean, there's just memories like that hanging out with some of my idols of these actors, of these characters who were legendary already in my youth, and getting to meet them in person and as a professional, and looking at, or even some of the other artists, like I grew up admiring, like Dave Dorman or Suneo Sanda, these incredible Star Wars illustrators who were just, they inspired me to want to create Star Wars art. And then getting to go to conventions and now, to even be considered like a contemporary or a colleague, it still kind of blows my mind, because I still look up to them, but they don't treat me that way. They treat me like I'm one of the guys, and I'm like, yeah, but what you do is magic, what you do is like, I want to do what you do. But, I'm just lucky enough to be included at these events with some of these people I've always looked up to my whole life. So I try to never take that for granted. Anytime I go to like Celebration or any Comic-Con, where like I was just in Lexington Comic-Con recently in Kentucky, and Larry Hama, the creator of G.I. Joe, was right down the row. And I he's like my other George Lucas, because I love G.I. Joe. It's what I grew up with, and I love that mythology of that comic. And every time he passed by my table, I always made sure to say, "Hey, Larry, how's it going?" Just because, he's a genius creator and a genius storyteller and writer and artist. So someone else I just really look up to.
I've got so many stories, but I'll just pick one. And I remember that Joe and I were at Celebration. I think last time it was in Orlando. I think that's right. And we had graciously been given, I think, or invited to the VIP area of the 501st Bash. And it was a real big party. And it was Weird Al was the music that night. And it was a really great time. And I remember that we got to hang out with Filoni, with Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni, yep.
I mean, and this is before Mandalorian, or this was, everyone knew him for Clone Wars and Rebels and everything, but before the whole Disney Plus thing. And so we were all just sort of, like Joe was saying, treated like equals, and that's, you're in awe of this person, but they're treating you just as an equal creator. And we just got to sit there and just have a really nice conversation before the show started about our Star Wars fandoms and the things we liked and different things about the movies. And it was just like a normal Star Wars fan conversation, just with Filoni. So that was a pretty nice moment, because it was after the show. We're all just hanging out. It doesn't feel forced. It's not part of the, it's not part of the gig, right? It just happened naturally. It was a really nice moment. But to top it off, right before Weird Al came out, in walks Billy D. Williams and his two dates for the night. And they glide past and say some hellos. And I think we all had some drinks or whatever. And then they go to their little sofa to watch the show. And so the rest of us are, from then on, like whatever we were talking about is over, because we're just in admiration of Lando, of Billy D, and his legend. Entourage. And so it was like the perfect way to cap off that moment.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. Do you guys have any like favorite Star Wars movies, series, characters? Or anybody in particular?
There's definitely I have my favorite characters for certain that inspire me as an artist to want to work with and illustrate, because they're fun to draw or paint, or I want to continue the storytelling with those characters in some fashion through my artwork. So I do have my favorites. And I have my favorite Star Wars films. I mean, I love it all. You know, even the projects that may not be as universally loved, or the ones that might have more bumps and bruises in them than others, but I still love it all. So, I mean, I can say that I'm excited. I'm really excited for Bad Batch season 2 because I love Bad Batch. It feels like Clone Wars Part 2 because I love Clone Wars. So, and I love Star Wars Rebels. I'm a huge Rebels fan. And it's funny because it seems like, you know, a lot of the Star Wars fans that, I mean, there's a ton of them out there that love Clone Wars and Rebels, obviously by now because those series have ended. But it seems like a lot of people always are excited for the next movie or the next live action experience on Disney Plus, and I am for those too. I'm excited for Kenobi more than I can, you know, I can't believe it's happening. But there's something with Lucasfilm Animation and what they're able to do with the storytelling with Star Wars and that medium that makes it so, like, there's just no limits. Another great example of that is Star Wars Visions, which was another Lucasfilm Animation project, which I loved. And there were so many different styles and different animators and animation studios that contributed to that project. So that was really fresh and exciting to see Star Wars boundaries pushed, especially like my favorite episode, The Ninth Jedi. It was so good. I love that episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it just felt like what Star Wars needed to be going forward, like almost like you know, like Star Wars, you know, 100 years from now or 500 years from now. That's the story I want to see where Star Wars is headed, and I really hope they do more with that episode and those characters. But yeah, you know, I'm excited for it all. I have my favorites. Darth Vader and Boba Fett are my favorite characters, and they happen to be Brian's as well. It probably explains why we're such great friends. We have very similar tastes when it comes to Star Wars. I know he's excited about Bad Batch as well, and Kenobi. So we're kind of on the same page usually when it comes to Star Wars and all this stuff that we're so passionate about.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I mean, I'll echo everything he said, and then I'll add to that Rogue One was such a great film that I am really excited for the Cassian Andor series, and I kind of almost don't even know what to expect, right? Because it all is supposed to happen before Rogue One. So I think the anticipation of the unknown has me really excited for it. And you know, as a fan, I like going into those scenarios where I don't know the answers. I don't know what's coming next. I don't have any pieces really to put together. So I think that's something coming in the future that I am really excited for. And you know, I would count Rogue One amongst those favorite films and those characters amongst the favorite characters, even though I've only got to do 2, you know, Rogue One illustrations in my career, but who knows, maybe this will open the door for more.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
I'll add this because I just, without giving too much away, I just had a conversation recently with someone in the know, and the Cassian Andor series is going to be really special. It's something to consider because it's not necessarily Filoni and Favreau involved in this series, which that's not a, you know, bad or good thing necessarily. I mean, but it's going to be different than the other live action series we've been getting, which means it's going to be, you know, it's a UK production, which is another difference as opposed to a lot of the other live action stuff that's being shot here in the US. And also it's Tony Gilroy directing, who was a co-director on Rogue One, who did all those reshoots, and really, you know, with the other director Gareth Edwards, he really kind of molded Rogue One into the amazing movie that it was. So the early word I'm hearing from people that I'm involved in production is that Andor is going to be different, and it's going to be special, and if you loved Rogue One, you're really going to love Andor. So
guys, we have less than 10 minutes to wrap up. Just if we want to, I don't know how many questions are left, or if we want to move it along, but that's the time we have.
I just have one more question. then we're done.
Okay.
So, and it's basically just, is there any information about yourselves or your work that you don't get asked much that you would like readers to know?
It's a great question.
Yeah. I'll let Brian take this first.
Oh, sure. I see how it is. No, that is a really good question. I would say for me is that, I am trying to interpret the Star Wars universe through the lens of my art style and the lens of the way I see Star Wars. And then hopefully my illustrations show the collector and show the fans Star Wars through my eyes. And I think that's, for me at least, the sign of like a transformative art process. So if a fan can see a version of Star Wars that they like in my artwork, then we're connecting on a different level, because it's one thing to, capture a still frame from the movie and share that, and everyone goes, oh yeah, I remember that, right? But if you can create some new illustration, some new interpretation, and maybe it's a moment that happened on screen, maybe it's a moment that we never saw on screen, then you can connect with people and build that story in a way that's new and unexpected. And I think the new and unexpected is what I'm hoping that fans take away from my artwork.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess the question is something about me or my work that maybe fans aren't really aware of, or maybe I can give them some insight.
Or maybe just something that, I don't know, that you're proud of, or that you, I guess, want people to know, or that you maybe don't like get a lot of recognition for, or get
Well,
asked
I mean, it's
about
not,
much.
yeah, okay. I mean, I think I have a reply. It's not necessarily about recognition for me, but what's personally rewarding as a Star Wars creator for me is having, not just being a lifelong fan and getting to contribute for this property with my artwork. I mean, that's incredibly special, and I cherish every single time I'm allowed to play in the sandbox, whether it's sketch cards or posters or contributing a new design to a character or a story. It doesn't really matter how big or small the contributions I'm lucky enough to do are. It's just the fact that yeah, I mean, it's just every time I'm allowed to do it, it's it never gets old. It's always a thrill. And I think the thing I'm most proud of probably is getting to just leave my mark on this property that I love so much, even if it's just a small thing, because there's hundreds and thousands of artists that work on Star Wars in different aspects, whether it's production for the films or the live action series or the animation or licensing art. I mean, Brian and I we're just one of many, 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 many artists who are lucky enough to do this for a living. But I'm personally, as a Star Wars fan, I feel extremely honored and lucky to be able to attend Star Wars Celebration, to be able to create new artwork for Star Wars Celebration, then to offer that artwork to all the fans out there that, either already like my artwork or just discovering it for the first time, because getting to share our love of Star Wars through our artwork, nothing beats that. So.
Amen. Well said.
Well, I will have to say that I feel very honored and lucky to be able to spend this time with you both and ask you all these questions and just learn all these fun things about you.
Oh, thank you.
I look forward to putting this all together.